The crystalline spires of Ardent Spire glittered like frozen fire against the backdrop of infinite space. The orbital station, a marvel of engineering created by the combined efforts of 17 advanced civilizations, rotated majestically around the neutral star of Helios 9. Its gleaming halls and sweeping architecture were designed to inspire awe, a physical manifestation of the Galactic Coalition's power and technological superiority. Captain Mara Voss watched the spectacle from the observation deck of her stealth vessel, the Phantom Dawn, which hovered just outside the station's sensor range. Her jaw tightened as the grand opening ceremony of the Intergalactic Summit unfolded on the screens before her. Representatives from 42 alien civilizations processed through the grand concourse, their varied anatomies adorned in the ceremonial garb of their respective worlds. Translucent avian Aurelians floated alongside the massive, silicon-based Krith. Telepathic Nexari ambassadors glided through the hall, their bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with communal thoughts. Even the reclusive Voth had sent a delegation, their crystalline exoskeletons catching the light as they moved. Earth and its colonies were conspicuously absent. "Another historic gathering," announced the Coalition's broadcast, "where the greatest minds of our galaxy convene to chart our collective future. Peace through unity, strength through cooperation. The Galactic Coalition welcomes all who share our vision of an ordered universe." All except humans, Mara thought bitterly. She switched off the feed with a sharp gesture. At 37, Mara's face had begun to show the lines of someone who had spent too many years fighting against insurmountable odds. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe braid, revealing eyes that had witnessed both the wonders and horrors of space. A thin scar ran along her right cheekbone, a souvenir from a Coalition peacekeeping operation on one of Earth's outer colonies. "You're grinding your teeth again, Captain," observed a quiet voice behind her. Mara turned to find Dr. Elias Renner standing in the doorway of the observation deck. The scientist was a stark contrast to her military bearing, his lanky frame draped in simple civilian clothes, his perpetually disheveled gray-streaked hair suggesting a mind too preoccupied with complex theories to be bothered with appearance. "Hard not to," Mara replied, gesturing toward the station. "They've made it abundantly clear we're not welcome at their table." Elias approached the viewport, his reflection superimposed against the stars. "Perhaps that's for the best. Would you really want to sit through days of diplomatic posturing? This isn't about diplomatic pleasantries, Elias. It's about having a voice. They're deciding the fate of entire sectors, including those with human colonies, without a single human representative present. The official reason being, the same as always. We're too unpredictable, insufficiently evolved, potentially destabilizing." Mara's voice dripped with sarcasm. Ambassador Thrextal was particularly creative this time. He called us cosmic children playing with matches in a room full of antimatter. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Colorful metaphor." "It's propaganda," Mara snapped. "They've spent decades portraying humans as primitive warmongers, too volatile to join the civilized galaxy. Meanwhile, the Krith annihilated an entire moon colony last year over a mining dispute, and they're sitting in there as honored members." Elias didn't argue. He'd been on Earth's lunar base when the Coalition first contacted humanity 50 years ago. Initial relations had been promising: exchange of knowledge, limited trade, cultural missions. Then came the classification protocol. All sentient species were evaluated and ranked according to technological advancement, cultural stability, and cosmic harmony. Humans had been classified as a Tier 3 civilization, restricted to their own solar system and a handful of nearby colonies, prohibited from developing certain technologies, and excluded from major political decisions. "How's the team?" Mara asked, changing the subject. "Ready," Elias replied, his expression growing more serious. "The resonance devices are calibrated and synchronized. Kai and Lin are running final diagnostics. Everyone understands what's at stake. Mara nodded, studying Elias closely. You still have doubts? It wasn't a question. After 15 years of working together, she could read his hesitations like a navigational chart. Elias sighed. I believe in what we're doing, Mara, but I'm a scientist, not a revolutionary. The resonance technology. It's unlike anything the Coalition has seen. We don't fully understand all its implications. We understand enough, Mara said firmly. We've been testing it for 3 years. It works, and it's our only chance to force them to acknowledge us. There's a difference between laboratory testing and what you're proposing. We're talking about revealing humanity's greatest technological achievement in the middle of their most secure facility. Which is exactly why it will work. Mara countered. If we demonstrated this on some remote outpost, they'd dismiss it or cover it up. This way, every major power in the galaxy will witness it simultaneously. They won't be able to ignore us anymore. Elias's gaze drifted back to the viewport, to the gleaming station beyond. And if they see it as a threat rather than an opportunity, if they decide humans with this power are too dangerous to tolerate? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Mara had asked herself the same thing countless times over the past months of planning. The risk was enormous, but so was the potential reward. Then at least they'll know we're not the primitives they think we are, she finally answered. Either way, after tomorrow, everything changes. As if on cue, her comm unit chimed. Captain, came the voice of her security chief. We've decoded the summit schedule. They've moved up the new territories discussion to the 3rd session. If we're going to make our point about the outer colonies, we need to be in position by 0800 Standard Time. Acknowledged, Mara replied. Assemble the team for final briefing in 30 minutes. As the communication ended, she turned back to Elias. Last chance to back out, old friend. The scientist managed a wry smile. And miss witnessing history? Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't accidentally rewrite the laws of physics while making your point. Mara's expression softened briefly. The Coalition has had its chance to accept us as equals. Tomorrow we stop asking permission. Together. They left the observation deck, the massive ardent spire looming in the viewport behind them, unaware that in less than 24 hours, its hallowed halls would become the stage for a revelation that would shake the foundations of galactic power. The official rejection had come 6 months earlier. Earth's diplomatic corps had submitted a formal petition for attendance at the Galactic Summit, citing the human colony's proximity to disputed territories that would be discussed. The response had been broadcast across all major communication channels, a deliberate humiliation designed to be witnessed by as many humans as possible. Ambassador Threx Tal, the Coalition's senior diplomatic official, had delivered the message personally. The Syraxian's 4 eyes had stared unblinkingly into the camera, his scaled skin shifting through shades of deep blue that indicated supreme confidence in his species. The Galactic Coalition has reviewed Earth's petition for representation at the upcoming Intergalactic Summit, he had announced, mandibles clicking with what those familiar with Syraxian expressions recognized as thinly veiled contempt. After careful consideration, the admission committee has determined that humanity has not yet demonstrated the necessary qualifications for participation. The recording had been playing on a loop in Mara's quarters for weeks afterward, fueling her determination. Humanity's continued expansion into space, despite clear boundaries established by the classification protocol, raises serious concerns about Earth's commitment to galactic stability. Thrextal continued in the recording. Furthermore, human military developments suggest a concerning prioritization of aggressive capabilities over peaceful technological advancement. The irony wasn't lost on anyone who had studied Coalition history. Every dominant species had built its power through military might before preaching peace to those below them. In the interest of productive discourse, The summit requires participants who have demonstrated both technological maturity and philosophical alignment with our principles of cosmic harmony. Earth's application will be reconsidered when humanity has shown significant progress in these areas. The broadcast had concluded with statistics purporting to show human conflicts and instabilities, carefully curated to paint Earth in the worst possible light. The message was clear. Humans were dangerous primitives, unworthy of a voice in galactic affairs. What the Coalition didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that humanity had been developing something far beyond conventional technology, something that would challenge the very foundations of what the Coalition considered power. In the briefing room of the Phantom Dawn, Mara stood before her team, 12 of Earth's finest, chosen not just for their skills but for their unwavering commitment to humanity's future. The room was utilitarian, all function with minimal aesthetics, typical of human vessels that prioritized efficiency over the ostentatious designs favored by Coalition ships. "Tomorrow, we change the narrative," Mara began, her voice steady and determined. "For too long, the Coalition has dictated who we are and what we're capable of. They've restricted our expansion, limited our development, and dismissed our potential, all while claiming to represent galactic peace and prosperity." She activated the holographic display, showing a detailed schematic of Ardent Spire. The station's structure appeared in the air between them, rotating slowly to reveal entry points, security systems, and the main summit chamber. "Our intelligence has confirmed that the Coalition will discuss the disputed Vega sector during the third session," she continued. "This sector includes 2 human colony worlds, Novara and Thessaly. They intend to redraw territorial boundaries and grant mining rights to the Krith Consortium, despite our prior claims." Kai Nakamura, the team's infiltration specialist, leaned forward, his cybernetic eye whirred softly as it analyzed the station schematics. "Security's been tripled since the last summit. Quantum scanners at every junction, phase-shifted detection grids, and Nexari telepathic sweeps every 30 minutes. Which is why we won't be trying to hack or fight our way through," Mara replied. Lin, a petite woman with an intricate neural interface curving along her temples, stood up. Lieutenant Lin Nguyen had been one of the first test subjects for the resonance technology, and her connection to the system was unparalleled. "The resonance devices will create a perception filter," Lin explained, her voice calm but intense. "We won't be invisible, but security systems and personnel will simply overlook us. Their attention will slide past as if we're not worth noticing." "That's the theory," muttered Tomas Rodriguez, the team's medical officer. "We've never tested it against Nexari telepaths or Aurelian sensory fields. The principles are sound." Elias interjected. "Psychic resonance doesn't just mask our presence, it harmonizes with the perceptual frequencies of other beings, suggesting that we're supposed to be there. The more advanced the sensory system, the more effectively it works, because there are more neural pathways to engage with." Mara nodded. "We've run every simulation possible. The plan is solid. We enter during the maintenance cycle at 0600, using the resonance tech to move through the station undetected. We position ourselves in the observation gallery above the main chamber before the third session begins." She shifted the hologram to show the summit chamber, a vast amphitheater with delegations arranged in concentric circles around a central speaking platform. "When the Vega sector discussion reaches its peak, when Thrextal calls for the vote to approve the Krith mining rights, that's when we make our presence known." Her eyes flashed with determination. "We reveal the full capability of psychic resonance technology before the entire assembly." The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the magnitude of what they were proposing. Earth had kept the development of psychic resonance secret for nearly a decade, a remarkable feat given the Coalition's extensive surveillance networks. It had begun as theoretical research into quantum consciousness, before evolving into technology that could manipulate matter and energy through directed thought, amplified by specialized devices. "Questions?" Mara asked, surveying the room. "What's our exit strategy?" asked Commander Jacoby, Mara's second-in-command. The veteran spacer had survived 3 coalition peacekeeping operations, and caution was etched into his weathered features. "There are 3 scenarios," Mara replied honestly. "Best case, the demonstration forces the coalition to recognize our technological achievement and open diplomatic channels. We leave openly, as acknowledged representatives." She paused. "Second scenario, we use the resonance technology to withdraw the same way we entered, leaving them to deal with the implications of what they've witnessed." "And the third?" Jacoby pressed, though his expression suggested he already knew. Mara met his gaze unflinchingly. "If they respond with hostility and attempt to capture the technology by force, we utilize the resonance device's full capability to ensure they understand that such action would be..." The unspoken implication hung in the air. The team had seen the defensive applications of the technology during testing, its ability to disrupt energy systems, disable weapons, even temporarily incapacitate living beings without causing permanent harm. It was powerful enough to give even the most advanced coalition security forces pause. "We're not starting a war," Mara added firmly. "But we're not allowing them to dismiss us anymore, either. Humanity deserves a place at that table, and after tomorrow, they won't be able to deny it." Elias watched from the back of the room, his expression thoughtful. Unlike the others, his concerns weren't primarily tactical. As the lead scientist on the Resonance Project, he understood better than anyone both the potential and the risks of what they had created. The technology operated on principles that blurred the line between physics and metaphysics. It could attune to the quantum field that underlay all matter and energy, what some on the research team had taken to calling the consciousness of the universe. The implications were profound and not entirely predictable. After the briefing concluded and the team dispersed to make final preparations, Elias found Mara in her private quarters, reviewing security protocols on her datapad. "There's something we haven't discussed," he said without preamble. Mara looked up, reading his expression. "I'm listening." "The resonance technology. It's not just a tool, Mara. It responds to the user's emotional state, amplifies intention. In the lab, under controlled conditions, that's manageable. But tomorrow, in a high-stress situation, with 42 alien species watching and coalition security forces potentially responding, you're worried about control," Mara surmised. "I'm worried about escalation," Elias clarified. "If someone panics, if emotions run too high, the resonance could manifest in ways we haven't anticipated." Mara set down her datapad, giving him her full attention. "That's why Lynn is our primary operator. No one has better emotional control or more experience with the system. And if something happens to Lynn, if she's incapacitated, then I take over," Mara said simply. "I've logged almost as many hours with the technology as she has." Elias studied her for a moment. "You're angry, Mara. You have every right to be. We all are. But anger and this technology, it's a volatile combination." To his surprise, Mara smiled slightly. "You think I haven't considered that? Why do you think I spend 2 hours every day in meditation? I'm a soldier, Elias. I understand that discipline isn't just about following orders. It's about mastering yourself." She stood and walked to the small viewport in her quarters, gazing out at the distant stars. "The coalition thinks they know humans. They think we're all impulse and emotion, incapable of the kind of transcendent thought they claim to value. But they're wrong. We contain multitudes." Turning back to him, her expression softened. "I won't let anger drive tomorrow's actions. This isn't about revenge or even pride anymore. It's about survival. If we don't secure our place in galactic affairs now, the coalition will continue to restrict us until we suffocate under their guidance." Elias nodded slowly. Despite his concerns, he trusted her. In 15 years of working together, he had seen Mara face impossible situations with a clarity of purpose that few could maintain. "Get some rest," she told him. "Tomorrow we make history, one way or another." Oh. The Ardent Spire's maintenance tunnels were sterile and precisely engineered, like everything created by the Coalition. Mara led her team through the labyrinthine passages, each of them wearing the standard gray coveralls of station service personnel. The disguises weren't their primary concealment. The resonance devices took care of that, but they provided an additional layer of cover. Each team member wore a small device at their temple, almost invisible against the skin. The devices hummed at a frequency beyond normal hearing, generating the psychic field that made them effectively unnoticeable. "Nexari telepathic sweep approaching," Lynn murmured. Her eyes closed as she monitored the psychic currents through her neural interface. 3, 2, 1. Mara felt the subtle pressure against her consciousness as the alien mind brushed past them, searching for unauthorized presences. The sensation was like being underwater, watching shadows pass overhead without noticing what lay beneath. The Nexari's consciousness slid over them and continued on, finding nothing worth its attention. "Clear," Lynn confirmed. They continued through the tunnels, following the path they had memorized from stolen schematics. Twice they encountered maintenance drones, and once a pair of Krith engineers. But each time they were ignored, not invisible, but dismissed as unimportant, forgotten almost immediately. After 40 minutes of careful progress, they reached the access point to the observation gallery above the summit chamber. As Kai worked on the door mechanism, Mara checked in with the Phantom Dawn. "Nightingale to nest," she subvocalized, the comm implant picking up the vibrations in her jaw rather than actual sound. "Position reached. Status?" "Nest to Nightingale," came the reply directly to her auditory nerve. "All clear. Summit third session scheduled to begin in 22 minutes. Coalition representatives currently in recess." "Acknowledged. Maintain us standby protocols." The door slid open silently, revealing a dimly lit gallery that ran around the upper perimeter of the massive summit chamber. Originally designed for support staff and translators, it had been largely automated in recent years, making it an ideal observation point. The team moved into position, spreading out along the gallery to cover different angles of the chamber below. Through the one-way transparency of the floor, they could see Coalition representatives beginning to file back into the amphitheater as the recess ended. The chamber itself was a marvel of alien architecture, a perfect acoustic space where 42 different species could communicate clearly despite vastly different sensory systems. The ceiling was a dome of living crystal that shifted colors to indicate speaking order and voting status. The walls contained environmental microzones, allowing species from various atmospheres and gravity preferences to coexist comfortably. "There's Threx Tal," Jacoby murmured, pointing to a Syraxian in elaborate diplomatic regalia, flanked by aides as he moved toward the central platform. Mara felt a surge of adrenaline as she recognized the alien who had delivered Earth's rejection. The ambassador's scales were shifting through patterns of authority and satisfaction, the Syraxian equivalent of a smug smile. "Stay focused," she reminded herself and her team. "We're not here for personal vendettas. We're here to change the future." Below, the summit's arbitrator, an ancient Voth whose crystalline exoskeleton had grown so elaborate with age that it resembled living architecture, called the session to order. The translation system activated, converting the Voth's silicon-based communication into forms each species could understand. "We reconvene to address territorial designations in Sector 17 Vega," the arbitrator announced. "The Subcommittee on Resources and Expansion has prepared recommendations for final vote." Mara checked her chronometer as preliminary statements began. The discussion would follow Coalition protocol, formal presentations of findings, statements from affected parties, except humans, of course, debate period, and finally, the binding vote. Across the gallery, she caught Elias's eye. The scientist gave her a small nod. Everything was proceeding as expected. When Threx Tal rose to deliver the subcommittee's recommendations, the chamber fell into attentive silence. The Syraxian moved with practiced dignity to the central platform, his scales now pulsing with authoritative blue tones. "Esteemed colleagues," he began, his voice amplified and translated throughout the chamber. "After thorough analysis of resources, development potential, and existing claims, the subcommittee recommends that primary development rights for the Vega sector be granted to the Krith Consortium, with secondary considerations for Aurelian atmospheric harvesting in the outer regions." Mara's hands tightened into fists as he continued. "While we acknowledge the presence of human settlements on Novara and Thessaly, these colonies were established in violation of Expansion Directive 347, which clearly designated Vega as a restricted development zone for Tier 3 civilizations." A murmur ran through the assembly, some voices of agreement, others of mild concern about the precedent of displacing existing settlements, regardless of their status. The subcommittee proposes a transition period of 5 standard years, during which human colonists will be relocated to approved Tier 3 territories, with compensation provided according to Coalition resettlement protocols. "Compensation," Jacoby whispered bitterly. 15,000 colonists forced from their homes, and he calls it a transition. Mara kept her eyes fixed on the proceedings as various representatives rose to speak. The Aurelians expressed satisfaction with their atmospheric harvesting rights. The Nexari raised concerns about the psychic disturbance of forced relocations, but ultimately deferred to Coalition authority. Even the normally isolationist Volth indicated approval of the structured approach. Not a single voice spoke for humanity. When the formal debate period ended, Threx Tal returned to the central platform for the final statement before voting. This was the moment they had been waiting for. "Before we proceed to the vote," the Syraxian announced, "I wish to address concerns about the human settlements directly. Some have suggested that this decision may lead to instability or resistance from Earth." His scales rippled with what those familiar with his species would recognize as dismissive amusement. "Such concerns are unfounded, while humans display remarkable adaptability and persistence, qualities that may someday make them valuable members of our galactic community. They currently lack both the technological capability and the unified political will to challenge Coalition directives." Mara gave the signal. Across the gallery, Lynn activated her neural interface, connecting to the resonance devices worn by each team member. Immediately, Mara felt the familiar sensation, a heightened awareness, as if her consciousness had expanded beyond the boundaries of her physical form. Below, Threx Tal continued his speech, unaware of the energy beginning to gather above. "The Coalition's purpose is to guide developing species toward enlightenment. Even when they resist such guidance, humans will understand, in time, that these decisions are made for the greater harmony of—" Mara stepped forward to the edge of the gallery, simultaneously dropping the perception filter that had kept her team concealed. As one, they became visible to the assembly below, 12 humans in simple gray uniforms, looking down upon the most powerful gathering in the galaxy. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Alarms blared as security systems suddenly registered unauthorized presences. Representatives turned in confusion, many rising from their seats. The Nexari delegates' tendrils flared with psychic shock at the sudden appearance of minds where none had been detected before. "What is the meaning of this?" Threx demanded, his scales flushing deep purple with outrage. "Security to the chamber immediately!" Mara's voice, calm and clear, cut through the growing chaos. The acoustics of the chamber carried her words to every corner without need for amplification. "The humans you so casually dismiss have come to claim their voice," she announced. "You debate our fate without our presence. You decide the future of our colonies without our input. Today, that changes. Coalition security forces began pouring into the chamber from multiple entrances, a mix of robotic sentries and organic guards from various species. They raised weapons of different designs, all pointed toward the human interlopers. "Intruders, remain where you are," commanded the security chief, a heavily augmented Krith. "Deactivate any technology and surrender immediately." Mara looked to Lin, who nodded once. "Ready. We will demonstrate why humanity deserves its place among you." Mara continued, addressing the assembly rather than the security forces. "Not through violence or threat, but through innovation you believe beyond our capability." With that, Lin fully activated the resonance network. Each human team member became a focal point for the technology, their combined consciousness creating a harmonized field that expanded throughout the chamber. The effect was visible first as a subtle shimmer in the air, like heat rising from desert sands. Then it manifested more dramatically, a beautiful, intricate pattern of energy that flowed through and around every being and object in the chamber. The patterns were unique to each species, adapting to their specific neurological and physiological structures. For the Nexari, it appeared as luminous thought forms that mirrored their own telepathic communications. The silicon-based Krith perceived it as crystalline structures of perfect mathematical precision. The Aurelians saw currents of potential flowing like their own atmospheric rivers. Each species experienced the resonance in ways meaningful to their particular consciousness, a universal language of energy and intention. In that moment, every weapon in the chamber gently deactivated, power sources temporarily harmonized into inertness, security barriers between sections faded, environmental controls optimized automatically, creating perfect comfort for all present. Even the living crystal dome overhead responded, shifting into patterns of unprecedented complexity and beauty. "This is psychic resonance technology," Mara explained into the stunned silence. "The ability to attune to and harmonize with the quantum field that underlies all matter and consciousness. Not through force or domination, but through understanding and alignment." Elias stepped forward beside her. "What you're experiencing is not an attack or a disruption. It's an invitation to connection, to a deeper understanding of the universe we all inhabit." The assembly remained transfixed. Many species were experiencing sensations previously unknown to them, a kind of universal synesthesia where thoughts became visible. Emotions had texture, and consciousness itself became a tangible medium. Threx Tal was the first to recover, his diplomatic training reasserting itself. "This display is impressive. Captain Voss, I recognize you from Earth's diplomatic corps. But infiltrating our most secure facility and interfering with our systems remains a violation of multiple coalition laws. We attempted diplomatic channels," Mara replied evenly. "You rejected them. You left us no choice but to demonstrate that your assessment of humanity is fundamentally flawed." She gestured to the patterns of energy still flowing through the chamber. "This technology represents decades of research your classification protocol should have prevented. Yet we developed it anyway. Not as a weapon, but as a new way of understanding reality itself." The Voth arbitrator, whose ancient crystalline form had responded to the resonance with particularly beautiful complexity, spoke with a voice that seemed to come from the chamber itself. "I have lived 17 centuries, young human, and witnessed the rise and fall of technologies beyond counting. What assurance can you offer that this power would not become a means of dominance rather than harmony?" It was Elias who answered, stepping forward. "The nature of resonance technology itself prevents such misuse. It functions by creating harmony, not by forcing change. The stronger the attempt to dominate, the more the system resists. It requires balance, empathy, and understanding to operate effectively." As if to demonstrate, the patterns shifted, becoming more intricate but also more soothing. Several representatives visibly relaxed, the initial fear response fading. "We do not seek to overthrow the coalition," Mara stated clearly. "We seek recognition as equals, We seek the right to determine our own future, to develop without arbitrary restrictions, and to contribute our unique perspective to galactic affairs. She focused her attention directly on Threx Tull, beginning with the right to speak for our own colonies in the Vega sector. The chamber had fallen into an uneasy stillness. Security forces remained at their positions but made no move to advance, clearly uncertain how to proceed against technology they didn't understand. Finally, a representative of the Nexari collective rose, her luminous tendrils pulsing with complex thoughts. "I sense no deception in these humans," she announced. "Their minds are open to us in ways unprecedented. This technology, it bridges gaps between consciousnesses that we believed unbridgeable." A Krith diplomat followed. "The mathematical precision of this energy field suggests developmental capabilities far beyond Tier 3 classification. By our own metrics, this achievement alone would qualify humans for reconsideration." More voices joined, some expressing concern about security implications, others fascination with the potential applications, still others debating the legal ramifications of reclassifying humanity's status. Threx Tull's scales had shifted to a more neutral hue as he assessed the changing mood of the assembly. A skilled politician, he recognized when opposition would be futile. "Perhaps," he conceded carefully, "in light of this unexpected demonstration, the Coalition should reconsider certain aspects of humanity's classification. A special committee could be formed to evaluate this technology and its implications." "A committee is not sufficient," Mara countered firmly. "We require observer status at this summit, effective immediately, with particular focus on any decisions affecting human territories. Additionally, we propose a comprehensive review of the classification protocol as it applies to Earth and all human colonies." The tension in the chamber was palpable as the representatives considered these demands. What had begun as a routine session had transformed into a pivotal moment in galactic politics, the kind that would be studied by historians for centuries to come. The Voth arbitrator, whose species was known for its deliberate thinking and long view of history, finally broke the silence. "In 17 centuries of diplomatic service," the ancient being intoned, "I have learned that transformation rarely comes from expected quarters. Perhaps there is wisdom in hearing these humans directly, rather than speaking about them in their absence." The arbitrator's gaze, refracted through crystalline facets, seemed to penetrate to Mara's core. "Observer status can be granted by my authority, without full vote. A review of classification requires committee formation. Both shall be done." A ripple of surprise moved through the assembly. The arbitrator rarely exercised unilateral authority. "However," the Voth continued, "this method of gaining our attention, while effective, cannot be endorsed. Future breaches of Coalition security will not be received with such accommodation." Mara inclined her head respectfully. "Understood, arbitrator. When legitimate channels are open to us, we will use them exclusively." Threx Tull, recognizing the shifting political landscape, moved quickly to position himself advantageously. "As chair of the Subcommittee on Resources and Expansion, I propose we table the Vega sector vote until human representatives can present their case formally. The Coalition has always valued complete information before making binding decisions." The irony of his sudden concern for human input was not lost on Mara, but she maintained her diplomatic composure. This was a victory, perhaps not complete, but significant. "The resonance field will be deactivated," she announced. "As a demonstration of good faith, Coalition systems will return to normal function, and security protocols will reinitialize without interference." At her signal, Lin began the careful process of withdrawing the psychic resonance. The beautiful patterns gradually faded, though they seemed to leave an afterimage in the consciousness of all who had witnessed them. As the field dissipated, Mara sensed rather than saw the subtle shift in the chamber, the reactivation of security systems, the renewed function of suspended technologies. Yet no order was given to apprehend the human delegation. The balance of power had shifted. if only slightly. "Representatives of Earth," the arbitrator announced formally, "you are granted temporary observer status, pending review by the full coalition. You will be provided appropriate accommodations within the diplomatic sector. The Vega sector discussion will resume in 2 standard days, allowing time for proper preparation." With those words, the most dramatic summit session in recent galactic history was adjourned. As representatives filed out, many cast curious glances toward the human delegation, some wary, others intrigued, all reassessing previous assumptions. Threx Tull approached the gallery where Mara and her team had begun to descend to the main level. The Syraxian scales had settled into a pattern indicating cautious diplomacy. "An impressive gambit, Captain Voss," he said quietly, mandibles clicking in what might have been reluctant admiration. "Though I must wonder what would have happened had the arbitrator ruled differently." Mara met his four-eyed gaze steadily. "Then we would have departed as we arrived. Ambassador, undetected and unhindered. But the conversation would have continued nonetheless. The knowledge of what humans have achieved cannot be unlearned." The Syraxian studied her for a moment longer. "You have changed the game, Captain. Whether for better or worse remains to be seen." He turned to leave, then added, "I look forward to our formal negotiations regarding the Vega sector. They promise to be..." As coalition officials arranged for the human delegation's official processing and accommodation, Mara found a moment to speak privately with Elias. They stood in a quiet alcove off the main chamber, watching the historic consequences of their action unfold. "We did it," she said simply. Elias nodded, his expression thoughtful. "We've opened a door. What comes through it is still to be determined." "You're not celebrating," Mara observed. "I'm contemplating," he corrected. "The resonance technology performed beyond even my expectations. The way it adapted to each species, created connections across fundamentally different types of consciousness. It's extraordinary." "And concerning?" He considered the question carefully. "Power always brings responsibility. What we demonstrated today, it's only the beginning of what resonance technology might achieve. The coalition will want it. They'll study it, try to replicate it, perhaps even attempt to control it. Let them try," Mara said with quiet confidence. "As you explained, the technology itself resists domination. It can't be weaponized in the conventional sense. No technology is inherently moral. Mara, it's the intention behind its use that matters." Elias gazed out at the representatives still lingering in the chamber. "We've shown them a new kind of power today, one based on harmony rather than force. The question is whether they'll understand the difference." Mara followed his gaze, watching the interplay of species and politics with new eyes. "Maybe that's the real test for all of us, coalition and humans alike. Not who has the most advanced technology or the strongest weapons, but who can wield power with wisdom." She straightened her shoulders, ready to step into humanity's new role in galactic affairs. "Whatever comes next, we've earned our place at the table. For the first time since contact, they're seeing us as we truly are, not as the primitives they imagined." Elias smiled slightly. "Perhaps that's the greatest power we revealed today, not the technology itself, but the ability to shatter preconceptions and force new understanding." Together, they walked toward the diplomatic sector, where the first official human delegation to the Galactic Summit would begin the long process of redefining humanity's place among the stars. Behind them, the echoes of the resonance field lingered in the consciousness of those who had experienced it, a reminder that true power could come in forms unexpected, even by those who believed they had seen everything the universe had to offer. In the coming days, negotiations would begin. Classifications would be debated. The future of human colonies would be determined not by distant authorities, but by human representatives speaking with their own voices. It was only a beginning, a single step toward a more balanced relationship with the galactic community. But as Mara had told Elias the night before, sometimes all it took to change everything was the courage to reveal one's true potential and the wisdom to use it responsibly. The universe, it seemed, would be watching to see which path humanity chose.